Following the incident of the Galwan Valley, China's defense ministry urged India to comply with the de-escalation agreement and to resolve the problem through dialogue. With anti-Chinese sentiment on the rise in India, can the two sides still maintain their relations? As before, from Beijing, we have Victor Gao, Chair Professor at Soochow University, via Skype, and Hailin, Vice Dean at the National Institute of International Strategy at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, by phone, and from New Delhi, Professor Madhav Nalapat from Manipal University's Department of Geopolitics and International Relations. Before we start the discussion, let's hear China's Defense Ministry's response first.
China's Ministry of National Defense issued an online statement stressing that China has sovereignty over the Galwan Valley area, the location of last week's deadly clashes between rival forces on the China-India border. The ministry spokesperson said that Indian troops violated the consensus the two sides struck on June 6. He said they crossed the border illegally and carried out provocative actions against Chinese troops.
It was India that violated our agreements and protocols and caused the clash. The incident happened on the China side of the actual control line, so India should take full responsibility. China demands India severely punishes the troublemakers and strictly restrain its frontline troops so as to ensure things like this won't happen again.
The China-India border dispute goes back to the 1960s. Troops have been engaged in a standoff since early May at several points along their lengthy line of actual control, most of which remains undemarcated.
The overall situation along the Sino-Indian border is peaceful and stable. The Galwan Valley clash is only a small incident. Two high-level meetings between senior military officials from the two sides have been held lately, and both sides intend to cool down the tension.
India seems intent on playing down the incident. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said on Friday there were no intrusions into India and no posts were captured. Experts say it highlights their willingness to find a resolution to the problem.
China and India are important emerging economies. Both sides give top priority to bilateral cooperation and have reached a consensus on jointly dealing with new global challenges. I believe the leaders of both sides have the wisdom to properly handle the border issues.
Since the Sino-Indian border is yet to be demarcated, it is not surprising that occasional clashes take place in the region. Until now, the countries have managed to resolve these disputes through diplomatic channels, intent on not spoiling their strong relationship over something which can be resolved through compromise and dialogue.
Now, first of all, let's take a look at the Chinese official account of what happened. According to China's Defense Ministry, in April, Indian troops built roads and bridges in the Galwan Valley. China protested. On June the 6th, consensus to ease border tensions following commander-level talks. India promised to refrain from de-escalating the situation. On June the 15th, Indian troops, according to the Chinese Defense Ministry, crossed the LAC and attacked Chinese troops. Skirmishes ensued. And on June the 17th, Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi spoke to India's External Affairs Minister. Both sides agreed to calm down. On June the 22nd, a second commander-level meeting is held. Victor Gao from in Beijing, what is your understanding of what happened?
Well, first of all, it is very unfortunate that border tensions flared up this time, resulting in quite a few deaths on the Indian side, and the Chinese government hasn't disclosed any casualty numbers, if any, on the Chinese side. And the deaths which took place were the first reported deaths along the China-Indian border for more than 40 years. So in this sense, it's very, very unfortunate. I hope the tensions will calm down and both sides will exercise maximum restraint. Now, according to the Chinese government's information, indeed it were the Indian soldiers who ventured into and beyond the Chinese line of actual control into the Galwan Valley and built up facilities and tore down the Chinese facilities in the Chinese territory. And that being the case, it is even more unfortunate, and I hope the Indian side will exercise restraint and will leave the Chinese territory as it is, and both sides can resolve whatever problems there are through negotiation and peaceful dialogue. Because any more escalation of tensions or even flaring up into armed conflict between China and India will be a disaster for China. It will be a disaster for India. And India and China being the two largest populations in the world, their war, if any, if ever it breaks out, will be a catastrophe for world peace and development. Therefore, I would say there is only one thing between China and India, that is to maintain peace so that both countries can focus on peaceful development.
Professor Nalapat, in New Delhi, do you want to respond to the official Chinese account of what happened? What is the Indian side saying?
Well, we are saying exactly what the Chinese side is saying, except that for us, the entire Galwan Valley belongs to India, and it is Chinese soldiers who were provocative and Chinese soldiers who started the violence. So you have a mirror account of what the Chinese are saying, and all you need to do on both sides is to replace the word Indian with Chinese. And this brings the question that you very correctly raised. The whole problem is the fact that we really, the line of actual control is not recognized as a line at all by the Chinese side. I think the sooner the Chinese side and the Indian side sit down and work out an agreed and established line of control, we can prevent this kind of incident. You know, there have been many such incidents, many such situations in which the Indian troops are supposed to have moved to the Chinese side. According to the Chinese troops are supposed to have moved to our side. According to the Indians, the only way to avoid is to have a clear line of control, and two mature countries like India and China, who, as Mr. Gao very correctly said, are the two largest populations on the planet, and historically thousands of years of friendship between them. I don't think it's an impossible task. I think it's very important to do that, because we cannot just treat the symptoms. The root of the problem is the fact that we don't really have a clearly defined LAC agreed to by both sides, a line of actual control.
Well, Professor Ye, our Indian friend talked about line of actual control and lack of recognition. How do you look at the situation? Are we headed for more escalation or an ease of tensions, actually?
I think there are three issues quite important. One is where this crash happened. Secondly is what exactly the process and the procedure of this crash. And thirdly is how the two sides respond to this crash. Firstly, when we talk about where the exact place the crash happened, we should notice that the Premier Narendra Modi said that the Indian territories was not infiltrate or intrude. That means the Galwan Valley is not under not the Indian part. Otherwise, the Premier Modi won't say that. So that's the problem. That I think as this reference, we can got kind of the conclusion that even for Indian side, the Galwan Valley, the sovereignty over the Galwan Valley is still on the dispute. That's the second question is what really happened? The crash. Yes, this time there's a casualties, but before that, there are also many crashes. And so the two important questions is what's the two sides, how the two sides respond to this event by escalate the situation or de-escalation the situation. I think luckily we noticed that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China and India both released a statement and take some measures to calm down the situation. So although the two sides have a different understanding on the line of control, just like the professor, our friends say.
Our Indian friend actually raised a very interesting question about the line of actual control. Professor Ye, I want to go to New Delhi. India's Prime Minister Modi, Narendra Modi's remarks saying that there was no Chinese incursion into India has actually drawn fierce criticism at home in India, not just from opposition, the Congress party, but in his own party. you know, his own party claims that he was too conciliatory to the Chinese position. Talk to us about the domestic pressure Modi faces.
Well, the fact is that he has a very strong majority. He's immensely popular. And I mean, my understanding of what the Prime Minister said is that the Indian side is strong enough to ensure that Indian territory is not in any way violated. And he is very confident of that. And subsequently, the Prime Minister's office issued a lengthy clarification, which basically bore out my understanding of what Prime Minister Modi said. So I again would like to repeat that we have seen too many of these clashes. We have seen too many of these situations, and frankly, it has been extreme good luck that so far there has been no casualty. I don't know what happened during the night of June 15th, but frankly, the deaths of 3 Indian officers were an extremely tragic event, and it was followed by about 20 other, I mean, the total of 20, and those scenes have played out all across the Indian, in every state, in almost, so many states, this situation has been active. So after that, I can tell you that I think it has resulted in a fundamental change of mood so far as the official contacts between Chinese and Indians are concerned. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed. And the only way it can be addressed is if the determination of the line of control is made the top priority of Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping, 2 outstanding world leaders, 2 admirable world leaders, and they give instructions that, let us say, in a defined time period of 3 years, an agreement is worked out on the border. I think they will richly deserve the Nobel Peace Prize once this is done.
Right, hold your thoughts right there, gentlemen. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, as anti-China sentiment rises in India, are the Indian government's hands tied? And as the U.S. weighs in, is it using the dispute to drive a wedge between China and India?